Hi, hope you're doing well. My name is Tom. I am a professional composer and music producer living and working in Wales. Now, a while ago, I made a video talking about my top 3 plugins for ambient music production. I'll link that up there and down in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. Quite rightly so, there were a lot of comments asking for free versions of the plugins I was talking about, or free alternatives, because let's be realistic about it, some of them were a little bit pricey. So that's exactly what this video is about. These are my top 3 plugins for ambient music production. If you don't want to sit through the whole video just to get the names of these plugins, because I do waffle a lot, then here's a TLDR. Right, let's get into it. If you want to produce ambient music, the main thing you're going to be looking for is going to be big, ethereal, dreamy spaces. And for that, I cannot recommend Supermassive by Valhalla highly enough. Supermassive is a delay and reverb combo unit from Valhalla. This is the same company that produce iconic reverbs like Vintage Verb, Valhalla Rooms, and Shimmer. I would recommend pretty much any of their products if you are interested in purchasing plugins, because they're pretty inexpensive anyway, and they are some of the best in the industry. But Supermassive is free, and in many ways this could be the only plugin that you need to download if you want to create beautiful, dreamy, ethereal ambient music. When you first load the plugin into a channel strip, its default mode is Gemini, which acts as more of a delay than a reverb, but it still has this nice ambient floaty vibe, not entirely unlike the Space Echo tape delays that people use all the time. So let's hear some examples of this, starting with some ambient guitar. And now everyone's favorite instrument, the felt piano. I find that especially on something like Synthplux, this default delay setting is brilliant for just creating a bit of space and giving the sound some nuance. Now, all of that was done without me even touching the reverb unit itself. I just loaded it into a channel strip. There are a ton of amazing sounds built into this plugin. As you can see here, there's an extensive list of presets that you can play with in both the delay and reverb category. It'd be astonishing to not find something you like, but let's be honest about it. If you're trying to make ambient music, your first step is probably to go straight to the reverb category and hit the massive list. Here's Final Frontier from that list. throw a synth pad or some strings through that and it's just absolutely magical. Now, one of the cool features that Black Hole has, and this is the reverb that I was raving about in my last video on this, is the ability to freeze a reverb tail. So effectively just pause it in place to create a really lovely drone that just goes on and on and on. Supermassive doesn't have exactly the same function in that there's, just a button you press on it and it will freeze the reverb tail. But the decay times on some of these, even without playing with it yourself, are so long that it kind of act as the same thing. And what this allows you to do, which is something I love doing personally, is to just create a drone out of those reverb tails by playing a few notes on the keyboard and then improvising something on top of it. I mean, I'll give you an example of what I mean now. I mean, that's a track. It's so easy to just come up with lush soundscapes like that when you're using Supermassive. It honestly blows my mind that it's free. But yeah, if you haven't downloaded it, you should probably do that. So let's move on to another amazing free plugin that I personally use all of the time in ambient music and music production in general. And that plugin is Bubbler by Soundhack. Now, this is an amazing plugin that's actually part of a whole bundle of free software by a company called Soundhack, which, as far as I'm aware, is just one person who creates a whole bunch of amazing freeware plugins. Now, the reason I'm including this plugin on the list and why I love it so much is partly due to the fact that I don't have a fucking clue what it does. On the website, it's described as a granular delay in which grains are pulled from the delay line with randomized start time, delay time, reversal, panning, and pitch shift values. There's a whole bunch of more detailed info after that, and I especially like the line, "It can give you an extremely dense cloud of sound," which is basically what we're all constantly trying to create if you do ambient. This isn't a plugin that I really understand, and the interfaces on all of them are nothing fancy, but that's what I love. These are the product of someone with a genuine passion for sound morphing. Now, I often use Bubbler as a sort of mystery source on pads, plucks, and often percussion as well. So this is a pretty basic pad progression. Now, if I add Bubbler at 100% wet, it becomes this. not very nice. But if I mess around with this a little bit more, it can become something that's changed a generic pad into a really lovely, wide, stuttery effect. Here's a fairly generic synth ARP. And this is it with Bubbler on its default setting. Again, it's not very nice just loading it up, but if you have a play around with it, things can sound pretty lovely pretty quickly. And at 100% wet, you can just sort of hear how easy it would be with a plugin like this to create incredible morphed soundscapes. It's something that can come in handy, especially when I feel like there's something missing from the sound. There's something that's just not quite right. Sounds a bit too sterile, but I don't really know what to do to improve it. It's just sort of a bit meh, and I want it to sound cooler. So I'll just throw Bubbler on it and play around with its UI for a while until I get something that I like. I've used it on piano, synth pads, and most often percussion. So you know those nice Foley infused percussive layers that you get in ambient music a lot? Well, Bubbler is amazing at simply adding more layers to that sound. Because it's all granular and randomized, it never sounds artificial or tempo locked or anything. It just creates a layer of what seems like organic nuance to what you're working with. Kind of more human, but also just a bit odd. Here's an example of me just using it on a shaker. Now, Bubbler is the most kind of weird and wonderful of the Soundhack plugins, but I'd really recommend just downloading the whole bundle because there are some amazing things in there. And as with all interesting ambient effects, the most fun thing that you can do is start layering them on top of each other. So here's what something sounds like if I put Supermassive and Bubbler on the same track. So that's Bubbler, an amazing, interesting, weird, and wonderful plugin that I use as often as I can. And finally, we are on to the last plugin in my list of the best free plugins for ambient music. And that is whatever you're most comfortable with. I struggled quite a lot when scripting and coming up with a plan for this video because I've been using most of the same plugins myself for years. And I know that in my last video, I spoke about Echo Boy as a delay, Black Hole as a reverb, and FabFilter Pro Q3 as an EQ. Now, Creative Effects, it's easy to find examples of amazing plugins that you can just download that have these transformative effects on your music. But when it comes to like the EQ side of things, I just really struggled to find something because I use Pro Q3 or I use the Logic stock plugin. So I could say that, yeah, for an EQ, get Logic, but that's not free because you've got to buy Logic. I'd just say use whatever is the plugin that you're most comfortable and most familiar with using. Because I was going through like list upon list when I was scripting this video of, you know, the best free dynamic EQs 2023. There is an endless, never-ending collection of plugins that you can download today and try them out. And I'm sure loads of them are awesome. But I tried downloading TDR Nova for this video because it has an amazing reputation. So if you're after a free plugin that does dynamic EQ and has an amazing reputation across the whole industry, then I would say go for that one, I guess. But it would be inauthentic of me to sit here and tell you that like, oh yeah, I use this on loads and loads of tracks when I don't. I couldn't even get my head around the interface on it. There's always going to be some new plugin that you can download and use. You know, if you're like adding some crunchy warmth to your mix, there'll be a whole host of free tape saturation plugins you can download. Fancy some super weird glitchy effect. Well, actually, no, use Bubbler if you want a super weird glitchy effect. But there'll be other plugins that do equally cool and random things. None of these things is going to transform your music creation process overnight just by having it. But the reason Pro Q3 is so good is that it saves you time. And the best way that you can save yourself time is by learning the equipment that you've already got. Get to know them, understand how they work. You know, someone who's been mixing with Logic Stock EQ for the last 10 years is going to be better at using it than someone who started 2 months ago and just got Pro Q3. So experiment with what you want, download what you want, and Supermassive is an amazing plugin to experiment with. You'll have so much fun. But once you've done some experimenting, pick the ones that you like the best and get really, really good at using them. I guarantee you after a while you won't even be thinking about downloading new plugins because there'll be nothing that you can't already sort of deal with. Pick your favorites, stick with them, practice. Get your workflow and your tastes dialed in, and regardless of the type of music you're trying to produce, you'll be smashing it. So there you have it, that's the video. Thank you so much if you're still watching this now. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, if you have any favorite plugins and ones that you couldn't live without or you've been using them for years and years and years, or even if you disagree with the things that I've said in this video. Let me know all of that down in the comments. And if you like the video, it'd be great if you could give it a cheeky thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more music related content. There'll be links in the description to my socials and my music pages for the different projects I'm a part of. Would definitely recommend checking out the music that I released with my friend Joe under the name PRAERS. It's some of the stuff that we're both most proud of ever working on. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that you've enjoyed this and have maybe learned something in the process. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.